Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Take My Laptop Home? Sure. Working in a small company in the Netherlands as a warehouse manager for over 35 years. I'm leading a team of 5 people doing the physical work, and I basically take care of all administrative work regarding import and export. During COVID, some people were forced to leave, and their jobs were divided over other staff. Some left without leaving important information regarding their work, which left us with a lot of extra work. Because of that, our boss made it so that everyone needed to assign someone as their deputy. This way, there would always be someone to do the work needed. I had a guy from our warehouse, I'll name him Steve, who I taught how to arrange transport, receive stock, etc. Steve would do that when I was free. In the beginning, I had not yet taught Steve everything, and he would not respond to incoming emails on my computer. During this time, all our old computers were replaced by new laptops, so everybody could work from home if necessary. One day, I had taken a day off and an email came in from sales who were working from home with an urgent order to be taken care of. A piece of equipment needed in a machine of a customer had to be sent the same day to be delivered the next. Machine stopped working, costing the customer a lot of money. Transport had to go through customs, and that was something Steve had not learned yet, and didn't respond. The next day, my boss was angry at me because I didn't respond. When I told him that it was my day off and Steve didn't understand everything yet, he replied that I had to take the laptop home when I took a day off in case of emergencies. That's what laptops are for. I told him that Steve could not do his job without it. He said, it's my job and not Steve's. Okay then. Forward a few weeks and I take another day off. As told, I took the laptop home. I told Steve that I would do that and tell everybody who wanted something that he wasn't able to help and to send an email to me. On this laptop are logins for websites to arrange transport, templates, SOPs, etc. I planned to go to the beach with friends and left the laptop in the car. My phone was exploding with calls in the morning because Steve did not have a computer. Other people didn't know where to find the information needed to arrange transportation and more. I never responded to the calls because a day off is a day off. When I got back the next day, my boss was furious. When I told him that I did exactly what he told me to do, he immediately told me to leave the laptop at work the next time and to share important information with others in case something happens with it. The next story is titled, Neighbor is an Asshole, so I caused a potentially catastrophic rift in his marriage. So this happened a couple of weeks ago, but I saw the result of it earlier today. A bit of backstory, I live in a predominantly Mormon area, and I am not Mormon. I received quite a bit of criticism from the across-the-street neighbor because of the religious difference. I'm assuming we've never interacted before. He started ducking with me. He currently has 10 children. About a month ago on trash day, he told one of his kids to kick my trash can over into the street. The kid did it, and I witnessed everything. This is not the first time he has kicked my trash over, and I figured it was a lost cause to go over there and ask them for some decency more than I already have. That same day, I was reminded by a friend about how I used to have a pen pal when I was younger, before I moved. Later that night, I was browsing the web looking for a pen pal when I stumbled across a cool-sounding site, prisonpenpals.com. I visited the site, and after clicking through a few dodgy links, was brought to an array of different prisoners who were looking for a pen pal. After doing a bit of browsing from there, I stumbled across a fellow who was on death row for first-degree murder. Feeling bad for this guy, but not wanting to give my address out, you send an email the guards print it out and give it to the prisoner, who then writes you a letter and delivers to your physical address. I remember the a-hole across the street, more out of curiosity than malice. I proceeded to write a very detailed letter about how I am a trapped, secretly gay Mormon man with 10 kids who was looking to start an extramarital affair with a prisoner. I put in his address and send. I had my hilarious petty satisfaction. I expected nothing to come out of this. I thought he would be going through his mail, see the letter, not open it, toss it, and think nothing of it after that. But boy, was I wrong. Of course, with it being a small town, this guy does run a small business here where one of my acquaintances works. I went in just earlier today and chatted with my acquaintance before he told me, "Oh my God, did you hear about the neighbor?" I said no because I hadn't, and he filled me in on all the details. Apparently, one of the neighbor's kids had brought in the mail only for his wife to find out and read the letter from this prisoner responding to the joke letter I wrote. I don't know the specifics of the letter, but I do know that his wife threw a ducking fit when he arrived home and made him pack his bags. My acquaintance informed me that this was not the first time neighbor had started or tried to start an affair with another man, and apparently this was the last straw for her. I'm still shocked, horrified, and extremely amused by this predicament. The next story is titled, "My employer owed me $192 in unpaid overtime. They told me why. I sleekly pretended to accept their explanation. It was an established, respected family art supply store with about a dozen employees that had been in the same location for decades. Employees were extremely knowledgeable, helpful, and valuable because they knew all the local artists. We weren't paid enough every 2 weeks. We'd sometimes work 48 hours a week. If that happened, they'd cut our hours to 32 hours for week 2. Then, the sneaky employers averaged both weeks together, so they are never paid overtime. The most shocking part to me, that as far as I knew, no other employees had ever made a stink. We were ordered to never discuss our pay with other employees. That probably shielded their scammy method. After the office manager condescendingly explained averages to me and sent me on my way, I smiled and thanked her for helping me understand. After that, I anonymously called the U.S. Department of Labor to make inquiries. I ratted out the store by name. When I Googled the Department of Labor, I found a law firm advertising to help employees cheated out of overtime pay. Serendipity! Then I told a coworker friend about it, and the two of us contacted as many current and former employees as we could track. A few were mad, but most said they suspected something. All the while, we worked our jobs happily, same as always. One day, an auditor from the government came and returned 2 days in a row. On day 2, the store's actual owner, who was always too busy and fancy to ever darken the door, showed up all puffed up and smiley, but left all sweaty with a frown. Then it was time to meet with the lawyer. The government made them pay accumulated retro overtime with interest to every employee they'd ever done this to. They had to put a notice in the paper, which I know was humiliating for such country club snots. There was also a big fine. I don't know exactly because I left to go to grad school. I heard the 2 longtime employees hired the lawyer and sued not only the store, but the owner and that condescending office manager individually. Bottom line, if when I brought it to her attention, the office manager had said, "Oops," and paid me my $192, instead of treating me like a child, they could have saved what I heard turned into $50,000. The next story is titled, "Entitled Ex-Husband Gets What He Deserves." After dealing with my husband, who's 29 years old, cheating on me, and loudly disrespecting me for 2 years. I'm 23 years old. I finally left him 4 months ago. He assumed no responsibility for the marital bills, and I had to sell the house and his truck by myself. When I left him, there was also a $400 phone bill in both our names. I ended up just paying the overdue bill a few months ago, under the stipulation that my ex-husband gives me $200 for his share. He gave me $90, then laughed at me for expecting him to pay me the other $110, stating that he doesn't owe me anything. About a week ago, I went into the store of my current cell phone provider and learned that I am paying twice as much as I should be paying for a phone because I am still being charged $40 a month for my ex-husband's phone. There's still $800 owed on it. I learned that the remaining balance was not transferred over because he failed to sign the required paperwork. I explained the situation to my ex-husband, and he was more than willing to join a conference call with me and customer service to get the remaining balance transferred to his own account. We had spent approximately 20 minutes on the phone before my ex-husband told the customer service woman that he is making payments on his own phone through his own account, that he doesn't have a clue what I'm talking about, and that whatever I called to inquire about, it is clearly not even his business. Then he hung up. So today I spoke with customer service again and learned that I technically own the phone, since it's in my name. So I made a police report. I reported the phone as stolen, and now it's flagged and shut off. The next story is titled, "An Entitled Mother Rips Open the Doors on My Ambulance," and it does not end well for her. I'm a 30-year-old male and a paramedic. I've been in EMS for the past 8 years, and I absolutely love my job. Last night, we were dispatched to a 75-year-old female who fell at home. The patient stated that she tripped over the carpet and hit her head when she fell. We arrived on the scene and noticed that the home was a duplex with our patient's door on the right and her neighbor's door on the left. We made our way into the home and found her lying on the floor. The woman was awake and breathing. We started asking her the standard questions. Are you okay? Does anything hurt? Do you remember the fall, etc.? She stated that she has a pounding headache and that she remembers walking to bed and then waking up on the floor. In my field, that's a pretty big red flag. We noticed that she's got a pretty good lump on the side of her head and a big bruise starting to form already. Noticing the bruise, I asked her if she was on any blood thinners. She said that she was on blood thinners from a previous stroke that she had a few years ago. We urged her to let us take her to the hospital because there was a possibility that the fall could have caused a bleed in her brain and that she should go to the hospital to get some scans done. She agrees, and we begin to package her up. We applied a C-collar around her neck in case of any C-spine neck injuries. She denied any neck or back pain, so we lifted her up and placed her on our stair chair. A stair chair is exactly what it sounds like. It's a chair with tracks that we use to carry patients up and down stairs. As we were getting her out of the house, her neighbor whipped the door open and started yelling about how she couldn't sleep with all the lights and noises outside. The sound of the stair chair apparently woke her up, and she was not happy about it. My lieutenant walked over to her and apologized and said we were dealing with a medical emergency and that we would be leaving soon enough. The Karen neighbor then noticed that our patient was her neighbor, and that's when she started yelling about something totally different. The entitled neighbor started yelling, "You can't take her to the hospital. I have errands to run tomorrow, and she needs to watch my kids." My lieutenant again reiterated that we were here for a medical emergency, and that her health is more important than her errands. The entitled neighbor let out a loud huff and then slammed the door in his face. We thought that was the end of it. We were wrong. After a few minutes in the back of the ambulance, we told our lieutenant that he could take the engine crew back to the station and that we were going to be heading out in a few minutes. After we checked her vitals, got an IV going, and started giving her IV fluids, my partner got out of the back and went up to the driver's seat. About 5 seconds later, the back doors of my ambulance fly open. And who do I see? The entitled neighbor, of course. Apparently, she needed a few minutes to get dressed before coming outside. I yell at her, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She yells back, "I told you she can't go to the hospital because she has to watch my kids tomorrow." She then starts trying to pull the cot out of the ambulance with our patient on it. Luckily, she didn't know how to unlatch the cot and couldn't get her out. Our patient says, "I can't watch your kids tomorrow because I fell and I might be having a stroke." The entitled neighbor yells back at her and says, "You're fine. You don't need to go to the hospital because you're not having a stroke." My partner then hears the commotion and goes to the back of the ambulance. He pulls her off the cot, and I slam and lock the doors. You could tell that the entitled neighbor was about to become combative. It's important to know that either the police department or the sheriff's department responds to our calls too, especially when it's at night. Because of where we were, it took a few minutes for the sheriff's department to show up on scene, but he got there just in time. I couldn't hear much through the door, but I saw the officer get out of his cruiser with his taser drawn. My partner runs back up to the driver's seat and starts heading to the hospital. The last thing I saw through the back window was that the entitled neighbor stomping towards the officer and then her hitting the ground after being tased. Super satisfying to watch. I was talking to my patient, and asked what that was all about, and she said the entitled neighbor will just drop her 3 young kids off at her house and leave for several hours at a time with no notice. My patient had no idea that she was supposed to watch the kids at all, because again, the entitled neighbor never even gives her a heads up about these things. Like I said in the beginning, this happened last night, so I don't have any updates, but I'll post an update when I learn more. The last story is titled, "This Stuff Isn't Good Enough." I saw another post that reminded me of this. This happened a few years ago. I was at Burger King and a guy was in there saying he was hungry and asking if anyone could help him out. I felt bad as everyone was ignoring him, so I asked him what he wanted from the menu. He said he wanted $5 to go across the street to get a sandwich because he doesn't eat this stuff, and waves his hand dismissively at the menu. I was about to place my order for this stuff, so I told him I could not help him. He became indignant and said, "You can't even give me $5?" As if it was the least I could do. I just took my food and left. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.